notice it in your body first. Before any thought, there's a tightening, a quiet watchfulness that lives somewhere between your chest and your throat. Sometimes it feels like a ring squeezing from the inside. Sometimes it's just a low tension, so old it started to feel normal. And even when you sit down, even when nothing is happening, your body doesn't really believe in rest. Notice it right now in the simplest way, the chair touching your back, the weight of your hips sinking a little. And still, maybe your stomach stays firm, like it's holding bad news. Maybe your jaw is clenched without you knowing, teeth touching teeth, like your body is ready to bite the world before the world bites you. Stay with me. By the end, this will make sense in your body, because the question isn't, why do I think so much? The question today is different. It's, why doesn't my body allow me to relax? Why does letting go feel like danger? Some people describe it like there's a high alert switch stuck on, and when you try to turn it off, your body startles you. A drop in your stomach, a sudden rush, an unease, as if it's saying, no, not now, and then you do what any decent human does when they feel this. You try to fix it. You shift position, stretch your neck, take a deeper sigh, grab your phone, put on a video, start making a mental list. Tomorrow I'll do this. I need to answer that. I have to. And for a few seconds it feels better, because at least you're doing something, at least you're in control. But your body wasn't asking for control. It was asking for safety. And it doesn't know how to ask with words. It only knows how to turn on sirens. Today, we're going to move through this slowly. This isn't a quick fix video. It's not a promise. It's a crossing. Something you let play while you do something simple. Wash a glass, fold a shirt, walk around the house holding a cup of water. Because this is intimate and it takes time. And that's okay. I want you to imagine observing yourself like a house at night. Quiet, but with lights on in rooms nobody's using. Why? Because someone inside learned that turning everything off is dangerous. That doesn't mean you're broken. It means you learned. If you want, you can share in the comments in the simplest, most human way. Where does anxiety show up first in your body? Your throat, your stomach, your chest, the back of your neck, your shoulders? You don't need to explain it nicely. Just name the place. Sometimes naming the place already changes how seen the body feels. Now, let me introduce you to someone ordinary. He could be called Henry, or he could be you, with another name. But today, he's Henry. Henry wakes up without really waking up. The alarm goes off. His eyes open, but his body opens first. The first thing is a tiny jolt, a second of disorientation, and with it comes a tightening in his abdomen, like his body is already bracing for a demand. He doesn't even know what. He just knows the day started, and with it, a feeling that something will ask too much from him. He lies there, staring at the ceiling. It's not peaceful. It's a blank stare with anxiety behind it, like his brain is still loading, but his body is already on duty. The pillow is slightly warm. The sheet brushes his leg. He moves his toes under the fabric and feels something strange. Movement brings life, and it brings urgency. Like even rest has to be efficient. He turns to the side. His neck cracks. The relief is so brief it almost makes him angry. And then the habit kicks in. Before he even sits up, his hand searches for his phone. The screen lights up. White light hits his eyes like a small shock. And right there, his body does something nobody teaches. He holds his breath without noticing. Not dramatic, just a small pause. A freeze, like he's waiting for the world to present itself. Notifications, messages, a reminder of something pending, a meeting, a payment, a reply he never sent. And instantly his chest hardens, like an invisible vest tightening. He thinks, I just woke up. But his body answers, you're already late. He sits on the edge of the bed. His feet touch the cold floor. That difference should bring him into the present. Instead, it brings a feeling of exposure, like the floor confirms, now it begins. He walks to the bathroom. The house is still quiet. Morning silence should feel gentle. But in his body, silence isn't gentle. Silence is space for threat to appear. He turns on the faucet. Water runs. He looks in the mirror. And a small, cruel scene happens. He doesn't see himself. He scans. Eyes, skin, dark circles, mouth, a micro-judgment, an automatic posture correction, shoulders slightly back, chin adjusted, like he needs to look ready, even alone, before anyone exists. And his jaw, always the jaw, tight, like it's holding a sentence that was never said. He brushes his teeth quickly, not conscious rushing, body rushing. His wrist moves like he's putting out a fire. And while he brushes, his tongue pushes air out like it's whispering, "Okay, okay, okay." But his body doesn't believe the okay. He washes his face. Cold water gives a brief relief, wakes the skin. And for 1 second he takes a deeper breath. And in the exact moment his breath deepens, his body starts to relax. And when it starts to relax, something inside him locks, like a part says, "No, if you relax, you lose control. If you relax, you won't handle it. If you relax, something will go wrong and you won't be ready." Have you ever felt that? Trying to drop your shoulders, and a second later they rise again on their own, like old rubber snapping back? If you have, you don't need to explain it. Just recognize there's intelligence in that, twisted intelligence, but real. Henry goes to the kitchen. The smell of old coffee hangs in the air, mixed with the cold of early morning. He grabs a mug, turns on the coffee maker, or heats water. The ritual is always the same. Do something automatic to feel like he's steering the day. But while he waits, his body doesn't wait. He leans on the counter and notices how all his weight falls on one leg. The other stays ready to move. One foot taps lightly. Not panic, just a small restlessness, like his body is warming up to run without knowing from what. His mind tries to help. Relax, nothing is happening right now. But his body speaks another language. It doesn't run on explanations. It runs on memory. And body memory is made not just of what happened, but of what almost happened, what could have happened, what you had to predict to avoid pain. The water is ready. He pours the coffee. The mug feels warm in his hands. That warmth should comfort him, but he feels it as urgency. He takes a sip, feels pleasure for a second, just a second. Then comes the need to do something with that pleasure. Like still pleasure is dangerous. He walks to the living room, sits down, turns on the computer. The screen opens, the light changes the air. He opens an email, a tab, another, and without noticing, his neck pushes forward. His forehead moves toward the world. His spine becomes a bridge. This is how his body works. It leans into life like someone leaning into a fight. And here, I want to ask you something gently. There's no right answer. Just feel it. When you're relaxing, does your body actually let you relax? Or does it keep you busy? Many people confuse relaxing with distracting, and distraction does something strange. It lowers the volume on the outside, but inside, the engine keeps running. You scroll for hours, and when you stop, your body shouts again as if saying, "I was never heard." Henry tries to be productive. He makes a list, organizes things, solves small tasks. Each completed task gives a tiny release, a quick phew. But soon his body wants another, and another, like he's thirsty but only getting drops. And it's not because he's weak, it's because there's an old pattern. His body learned that peace doesn't last, so it tries to manufacture peace in crumbs all the time. By mid-morning, he feels exhausted. The strange part, he hasn't done anything physically heavy, but his body feels like it carried weight. Because it did. It carried vigilance. His shoulders are high. The back of his neck feels like warm stone. His breathing is shallow, stuck in the upper chest. His stomach holds a tense emptiness, like hunger and fear are the same thing. His hands sometimes turn cold or suddenly sweaty for no clear reason. He stands up to go to the bathroom again, but really, he stands up to step out of his body for a few seconds. The house is the same. The day is the same. But inside, The alarm never turns off. And I want you to notice something important. The alarm doesn't start in thought. It starts in the body, in a micro adjustment you barely see. Your tongue pressing the roof of your mouth, a breath that never fully finishes, a belly that never softens, eyes scanning for problems even in neutral things. And before you realize it, you're already inside it. We're going to keep moving through this slowly. And we'll get to the point where it becomes clear why relaxing for this body feels like risk. It will make sense without needing to convince anyone. Before we continue, one last simple invitation. If any part of your body started speaking while you listened, a tension that stood out, an urge to swallow hard, a breath that got stuck, hold that not as a problem, as a clue. And if you want to share it, you can. Sometimes someone reads it and thinks, I thought it was just me. Henry is lying down, but his body is still standing. That's not a metaphor. His spine touches the mattress, but inside, some muscles never lie down. A part of his abdomen that won't soften. A piece of his shoulders still waiting for a call. And the more he tries to fall asleep, the more trying becomes a task. And for him, tasks mean alert. He closes his eyes and feels his tongue pressed against the roof of his mouth like it's holding a door shut. His jaw tight, not painful, just working. His teeth don't always touch, but they stay close, ready, like his body is saying, don't relax all the way. His breath comes in short, goes out short, and there's something he hasn't noticed in years. He never fully exhales. He never lets the air leave completely. He releases just enough to stay alive and holds a little back, as if holding air means holding the world together. That's why resting feels exhausting. He turns to his side. The pillow folds under his cheek. His skin touches the fabric, and for a second it feels almost childlike, almost good. And right after that comes another wave, a tightness in his chest, a small urgency, like his body remembers, too much good feeling is dangerous. Pull back, and then that quiet shame appears, not a full thought, just a weight. What's wrong with me? Henry opens his eyes in the dark. The room has shapes, a thin line of light through the curtain, the outline of the dresser, the faint glow of his phone on the nightstand. His body scans for signals, like an animal that learned sleeping means becoming prey. And this is where we have to move carefully. When I say shadow, I'm not talking about something ugly. I'm talking about a part that learned to survive, a part that protected you the only way it knew how. The problem is, today it's using the same old tools in a life that isn't the same anymore. This part of Henry doesn't show up like a monster. It shows up as gestures, when he checks the door twice, when he answers too quickly to avoid discomfort, when he anticipates, when he does more than asked, when he feels guilty just for having needs. It shows up as tension, as maximum alert. And I want you to feel this in your body, not just understand it in your head. This alarm is trying to prevent a very specific pain, not a vague fear of the future, a fear of a feeling. For some people, it's emptiness. For others, shame. For others, the feeling of being invaded. For some, that cold loneliness that drops inside you like an elevator with no brakes. For Henry, the thing he avoids feeling is helplessness. The sensation of not being able to stop something. Because at some point too early in his life, he learned that calm couldn't be trusted, that calm could be interrupted. So he made a silent vow. I will stay ready. Ready for what? Ready to detect shifts in mood, ready to predict criticism, ready to avoid being caught off guard, ready to depend on no one, ready to not be a burden, ready to not make the kind of mistake that costs love. That's why relaxing in his body tastes like risk. Relaxing means lowering the antennas. And back then, lowering the antennas meant not seeing the hit coming, so the shadow becomes strategy. And every strategy has a price. The next morning, Henry wakes the same way. Micro-shock, contraction, eyes opening on the outside, body opening on the inside like the day is a test. But today, he notices something. Not because he's suddenly enlightened, but because his body is tired of carrying this alone. When the phone lights up, his throat tightens. Actually tightens, like an internal hand squeezing slightly. And when the throat tightens, everything follows. His chest lifts, his belly hardens, his face becomes more serious. It's a chain reaction. And this is where we start to see the pattern as a pattern, not as destiny. Henry begins to notice there's an inner character. It takes over when the alarm rises. It has a favorite sentence, "You can't relax." And it has a posture, slightly leaning forward, like someone about to fix everything, like someone holding the world together. Today, we're going to give this character a simple human name, because when you name something, you separate from it. You gain a little space to breathe. And here is the sentence I promised. The shadow has a name, and when it has a name, it loses power. Henry's shadow is named Paolo. Not because there's a real Paolo, but because the name feels solid, everyday, grounded. Paolo is the one who holds everything up. He doesn't let go. He doesn't rest until everything feels safe. Paolo is the self that grips, and when Henry is in Paolo mode, he confuses tension with love, control with care, exhaustion with responsibility. Deep in his body, he believes, if I let my guard down, something will break, someone will suffer. I'll lose respect, I'll lose my place, I'll lose the little ground I built. So Paolo keeps everything upright, but he doesn't do it gently. He does it with rigidity, and rigidity becomes a prison. Now notice a small, everyday scene, because that's where the shadow reveals itself. Henry is at the grocery store. Narrow aisle, white lights, cartwheels rattling, a couple arguing quietly near the freezer, a child crying somewhere. He holds a basket. The handle presses into his palm, leaving a red mark. He reaches for a simple item, and suddenly, his body sends a signal, a rush, heat in his face, the feeling of being watched, even though no one is looking. He looks down. His vision narrows slightly. His throat tightens again. He swallows, and only after that does the thought appear, trying to explain it. I'm taking too long. I'm in the way. Paolo just walked in. Paolo takes over management. He adjusts Henry's pace, speeds him up, makes him apologize with his body without saying a word, makes him shrink, choose faster, decide faster, leave faster. When Henry exits the store, he feels relief, a quick, it passed, but the relief tastes false. Because nothing passed, it was just pushed aside. And this is the turning point many people take years to see. The trap isn't having an alarm. The trap is fighting the alarm as if it were an enemy. When Henry feels his chest tighten and thinks, "Stop this," his body hears, "Danger confirmed." Because if even you are afraid of your own alarm, then it must be serious. When he tries to relax by force, Paolo interprets that as neglect. So Paolo increases tension to protect. And cruel, right? Henry wants peace, but the way he tries to get peace makes the shadow work twice as hard, so we do something different. We train an opposite archetype to Paolo, not a perfect opposite, not some floating Zen figure, a trainable human way of being. Paolo's opposite is Davi. Davi is the self that supports. He isn't passive. He isn't slow out of laziness. He simply doesn't confuse urgency with safety. He can hold discomfort without turning it into war. And to make him real, Davy has a small flaw. Sometimes he slips, goes back to autopilot, grabs the phone to escape, responds too fast, but he notices, he returns. He doesn't turn it into a life sentence. At first, Henry can't become Davy all at once. No one can. He can only take one small step, and this is the beginning of the practice, not the full training yet, just the first door. When the alarm rises, when his chest tightens, when his jaw locks, he does something so simple it almost feels insignificant. He stops explaining, stops arguing with his body. He recognizes. Quietly, inside, he says, "Paolo, I see you." That's it. And notice what happens when something gets a name. The tension doesn't disappear, but it changes shape. It stops being an ocean and becomes a wave. The body understands, someone is here with me, And sometimes that lowers the alert by just one level, just one. But one level changes everything. If you want, you can try it right now. Pick a point of tension, your jaw, your shoulders, your stomach. Without trying to relax it, just acknowledge, I see you. No pushing, no fixing, just seeing. Henry does this for the first time on an ordinary afternoon, sitting on his couch after a long day. He feels the restlessness in his legs, the urge to check something, and he almost stands up. Almost, but he catches the pattern 1 second earlier. His leg trembles, his foot wants to tap, his breath wants to climb into his chest, his hand wants his phone, and he sees Paulo arriving like always. He doesn't fight. He leans back into the couch, feels the fabric against his shoulder blades, notices pressure in his lower back, feels his jaw locked, and instead of commanding, relax, he simply lets his tongue drop slightly from the roof of his mouth, not relaxing, just removing a small grain of stone from between his teeth, and inside he says, Paulo, and something strange happens. He feels like crying, not because things got worse, but because for the first time, someone inside looked at him with respect, and that respect almost never existed there. If this touched something in you, just hold it. You don't need to understand everything today. In the next part, we'll build the 30-day practice the right way, with the body leading. We'll learn how to lower the alarm, map its physical roots, and act like Davy in real life, without perfection, without performance. Henry starts to notice something that brings fear and relief at the same time. Fear, because it changes how he sees himself. Relief, because for the first time, there's a path that isn't war. He's on the couch that afternoon. After saying Paulo, he stays still for a few seconds, just feeling his body, without trying to push it anywhere. The house is quiet. A low hum fills the air. The fridge clicks in the distance. A car passes outside, and his body wants to turn every sound into a signal. It wants to get up, act, get ahead of something. His leg does that fine trembling again. His foot restless. His hand opens and closes slightly, like it's practicing grabbing something. And the strange part is, it isn't panic, it's readiness. Like he's standing at a starting line all the time. He notices his tongue again, pressed to the roof of his mouth. He notices how that pulls his throat tight, a throat that never lets his voice fully come out, a throat that holds the world with saliva and pressure. So he makes a tiny gesture. He lets his tongue rest, just a little, behind his lower teeth. Nothing heroic, no deep relaxation, just 1 millimeter of permission. His chest responds with a small shift, a slight urge to take a deeper breath, and immediately Paulo tries to stop it. Don't trust it. Don't let go. You'll lose control. Henry almost falls back into the pattern, almost attacks himself, almost says, I can't even do this. But instead, he does the opposite. In the quietest inner voice a person can have, he thinks, Paulo, I know. You kept me alive, and that matters. Because Paulo isn't a villain. He's an old employee who never got a day off. In that moment, Henry understands something his anxiety has always been trying to say. It's not that he doesn't know how to relax. It's that his body learned that relaxing means being unprotected. And for him, protection always came in the form of tension. Like tension was a shield, but a shield worn all day turns into a cage. This is where the 30-day practice begins, in a way the body can actually accept. No force, no promises, no violence disguised as willpower, just 3 movements, 3 directions, repeated daily with patience. And here's the sentence exactly as it is, because it isn't pretty, it's real. Small steps are what change everything. First movement, lower the volume of the alarm, not turn it off, lower it. You don't walk up to an alarm and say, shut up. You say, I hear you, because being heard is the first form of safety. In practice, this begins with a 30-second ritual, several times a day. 30 seconds where Henry doesn't try to understand life. He just gives his body a simple signal, you're not alone in here. He chooses one place, just one, his chest, his stomach, his jaw. He places his hand there, feels the temperature, the pressure of his touch, the sensitivity of the skin. And while he touches, he doesn't talk to himself. He just stays. His breathing will fight at first. It will want to rush, turn into a task. And Henry doesn't make it a mission. He simply tries to feel one exhale, finish. Maybe it only happens once. Maybe halfway. That's okay. The body understands small messages. Second movement, map the physical route, not the full story, not the explanation. The physical route is the first place where the alarm begins, always the same way, before it becomes a thought. Henry starts to notice his alarm begins before his chest tightens. It begins with a micro lift in his shoulders, with his tongue sticking to the roof of his mouth, with his eyes hardening, with his belly turning rigid. He maps this without judgment, like mapping a route. Here I turn, here I cross, here I speed up. Because when you know where it starts, you don't have to wait for a storm to realize the sky has darkened. Third movement, act like Davi. Not perfect Davi, trainable Davi, supportive Davi. Acting like Davi means doing one small, real-world action that gently contradicts Paulo without humiliating him. It shows the body, through action, that there is another way to be safe. Sometimes it's answering a message at a human pace, not an urgent one. Sometimes it's eating while sitting down, chewing until you actually taste the food. Sometimes it's leaving a task good enough and stopping before collapse. Sometimes it's saying, I'll get back to you later, feeling the urge to apologize, and still holding your ground. Davi doesn't defeat Paulo with force. He does it through repeated experiences of safety. Now, a small practical example, 3 short lines. 3 sentences Henry writes on paper and leaves somewhere visible, not as a mantra, but as a body reminder. My chest tightened. I saw it. My tongue stuck. I loosen it a millimeter. Paulo, thank you, I'm driving now. When he reads this, his body reacts. Sometimes it quietly laughs. This is silly. Sometimes it gets irritated. Sometimes afraid. Good. That means it touched the right place. The shadow doesn't move when we stay on the surface. Henry starts on day 1 and fails. He forgets. He rushes, he gets lost. He fights the alarm, and the alarm screams louder. He blames himself, promises tomorrow will be different, and the next day, it happens again. But at some point, day 7, day 12, it doesn't matter. He catches the alarm early. He's in the kitchen, waiting for water to heat. His leg bounces, his stomach tightens, his hand reaches for his phone, and he notices. Paulo just walked in. He doesn't argue. He places his hand on the cold countertop, feels the stone, the texture, the weight of his arm, and he lets one exhale finish, just once. In that moment, his body doesn't turn into paradise, but the volume drops 1 level, and 1 level is the beginning of a different life. This is how trust is built, not as belief, but as experience. And here's something delicate. When the alarm lowers, another feeling often appears underneath: sadness, exhaustion, loneliness, a longing to be cared for. That's why Paulo keeps tension alive, to keep you from falling into those places without support. So the practice isn't about removing the alarm, it's about building enough support so you can finally feel what was frozen without drowning. Now return to Henry in bed at night, because this is where it becomes clearest. He turns off the light, lies down, his body lights up. But tonight he does something different. He doesn't demand sleep, doesn't negotiate with his mind, doesn't say, I have to fall asleep. He just does the 30-second ritual, hand on his chest. He feels warmth, the fabric of his shirt, his heartbeat, sometimes strong, sometimes uneven, sometimes stubborn. And he lets one exhale leave completely. His throat tries to tighten, his jaw tries to lock. He notices, he doesn't fight, he loosens his tongue 1 millimeter. And inside, almost like speaking to a child who doesn't believe yet, he says, Paulo, I'm here. And something in his body softens. Not all of it, just a part. But that part softening is already rest. You'll notice the alarm doesn't disappear quickly. It tests you, returns. whispers, "What if?" says, "Don't trust this," tries to make you run. You won't stop running every time. You won't win every time, but you will return. And returning is the real skill. Remember the identity of this place. The shadow is the part that learned to survive. The alarm is the system trying to protect you. So if you take only one thing today, let it be this. When your body won't let you relax, it isn't betraying you. It's guarding you the only way it learned. And the work now is not forcing yourself to relax. It's building safety millimeter by millimeter until your body recognizes that the present is different from the past. One simple sentence to carry with you. You don't need to defeat your body. You need to return to it. And if you want a final, very human invitation, no pressure at all. What's the first sign of your Paulo? Is it your jaw, your stomach, your tongue, your chest? Sometimes someone else names it, and for the first time, you recognize your own map.